I woke up to find my 17-year-old grandson standing beside my bed at 2 a.m., whispering words that would save my life. "Grandma, you need to see this. Mom's planning to kill you." My name is Christine Hartford. I'm 68 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I knew what betrayal looked like. I was wrong. 3 weeks ago, my house, the home where I'd raised my son, where my husband had died, where my grandchildren had taken their first steps, burned to the ground in the middle of the night. I lost everything. My photo albums, my wedding dress, 63 years of memories turned to ash in less than 4 hours. I moved in with my son Michael and his wife Caroline because I had nowhere else to go. I thought they were saving me. I didn't realize they were the ones I needed to be saved from. Before the fire, I lived in a modest 2-story house on Maple Street, the same house Michael was born in back in 1962. Every creak in the floorboards told a story. The stain on the kitchen ceiling from when Michael tried to help make pancakes at age 6. The height marks on the doorframe tracking his growth from toddler to teenager. The garden my late husband Robert and I had planted together, still blooming every spring. I'd been a nurse for 40 years before retiring, critical care mostly. I'd seen people at their worst and their best, held hands during final breaths, celebrated miraculous recoveries. That career taught me to trust my instincts, to notice when something was wrong even before the monitors started beeping. My days were simple, but full. I volunteered at the local hospital 3 mornings a week, tended my garden, read mystery novels, and video called with Tyler and Emma every Sunday evening. I managed my own finances, the $2.3 million inheritance Robert had left me from his engineering patents, carefully invested and growing steadily. I lived comfortably but modestly, planning to leave it all to my grandchildren someday. Michael visited once a month, always apologizing for not coming more often. Work was demanding, he'd say. Caroline kept the household running. I understood. I'd been a working parent, too. Caroline came with him sometimes. She was always polite, always smiling, but there was something in her eyes when she looked around my house, like she was taking inventory. Once she'd asked about my estate planning and suggested I might need professional help managing my money at my age. I'd smiled and changed the subject. I should have paid more attention. That was my first mistake. The night of March 15th, I woke up at 3:17 a.m., not because of an alarm, because of the smell. Smoke has a specific scent when it's not supposed to be there. Acrid, wrong, terrifying. I'd smelled it before in the hospital, during a small electrical fire in the break room. But this was stronger, much stronger. I opened my bedroom door, and the hallway was already filling with gray haze. The smoke alarm should have been screaming. It wasn't. Later, I'd learned the batteries had been removed. I didn't think. 40 years of nursing training kicked in. I grabbed my phone, dropped to the floor where the air was clearer, and crawled toward the stairs. The heat was already intense. I could hear the fire roaring somewhere below me, a sound like a freight train, hungry and unstoppable. I made it outside in my nightgown, barefoot on the cold March grass, and called 911. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely press the numbers. The firefighters arrived within 8 minutes. By then, flames were shooting through the roof. I stood on the sidewalk, wrapped in a blanket a neighbor had brought, and watched my entire life burn. Michael and Caroline arrived 20 minutes later. Michael was pale, shaking, pulling me into a hug. Caroline stood behind him, one hand on his shoulder, her face arranged in perfect concern. "Oh, Mom," she said, her voice breaking in exactly the right places. "Thank God you're okay. You can't stay alone anymore. This is a sign. Come live with us. We'll take care of everything." The fire investigator, a man named Jim Kowalski, was already walking the perimeter, taking photos. He glanced at me when Caroline said, "She's been so forgetful lately," and something flickered in his eyes. "I'm not forgetful," I said quietly. "I remember everything." Caroline laughed and patted my arm. "Of course you do, Mom. Of course you do." That was when I should have known. Michael and Carolina's house was beautiful, a 4-bedroom colonial in a gated community, all clean lines and neutral colors. The guest room Caroline had prepared for me was on the first floor, decorated in shades of beige and cream, impersonal, like a hotel. "We thought you'd be more comfortable down here," Caroline said, smoothing the duvet. No stairs to worry about. The bathroom is right next door, and I'll be nearby if you need anything at night. Michael was already back at work. An important project deadline, Caroline explained. Tyler and Emma were at school. It was just the two of us. Caroline was everywhere, bringing me tea I hadn't asked for, suggesting I should rest, offering to help me call my insurance company, my bank, my lawyer. "You've been through such trauma, Mom. Let me handle the details." I noticed small things. The way she positioned herself between me and the phone, how she'd already unpacked my single suitcase and put my clothes away, organized by color, not the way I would have done it. The lock on the guest room door that only worked from the outside. "For safety," Caroline said when she saw me looking at it. "We wouldn't want you wandering at night, confused." "I'm not confused," I said. "Of course not. I just mean, after the shock of the fire, it's natural to be disoriented." Tyler came home from school that afternoon. He was 17, tall and lean, with Michael's dark hair and my late husband's thoughtful eyes. He stood in the doorway of my room, looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Hi, Grandma," he said quietly. "Hi, sweetheart." He glanced toward the kitchen where Caroline was cooking dinner, then back at me. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, then closed it again and walked away. That night, Caroline brought me 2 small white pills with dinner. "To help you sleep," she said, "after everything you've been through." I tucked them under my tongue and pretended to swallow. I lay in the dark, still dressed, waiting. The pills I hadn't swallowed were wrapped in tissue in my pocket. Something was wrong. Every instinct I'd honed over 40 years was screaming at me. At 2:13 a.m., my door opened. Tyler slipped inside, closing it silently behind him. He was still dressed too, in jeans and a hoodie. He put a finger to his lips and motioned for me to follow him. We crept down the hallway, past Michael and Caroline's closed bedroom door, and down to the basement. Tyler had set up a small workspace down there, a desk, a laptop, some photography equipment. He closed the basement door and turned on a small lamp. "Grandma," he whispered, "you're not safe here." My heart was pounding. "Tyler, what?" "I need to show you something. But you have to promise you won't freak out, and you can't tell Dad. Not yet." He opened his laptop and pulled up a video file. The timestamp said it was from 2 weeks ago, a week before my house burned down. The video showed Caroline and a man I didn't recognize sitting in the living room upstairs. The angle suggested the camera was hidden somewhere near the bookshelf. "That's Douglas Pembroke," Tyler said. "He's a lawyer. Mom's been meeting with him a lot." On the screen, Caroline was leaning forward, her voice low but clear. "The fire needs to look like an accident. Electrical, maybe. Old house, old wiring. Once she has nowhere to go, she'll have to move in with us." My blood turned to ice. Pembroke's voice was smooth, professional. "And then we proceed with the competency evaluation. Given her age and the trauma, it shouldn't be difficult to demonstrate she needs a guardian. Once you have power of attorney—" "I already have it," Caroline interrupted. "I forged it 2 weeks ago. The bank accepted it without question." The man on the screen smiled. "Excellent. And the insurance policy?" $2 million. I practiced her signature for a month. It's perfect." I couldn't breathe. I literally could not get air into my lungs. Tyler paused the video and looked at me, his eyes filled with fear and something else, determination. "Grandma," he whispered, "I think Mom burned down your house." "How long have you known?" My voice didn't sound like my own. 2 weeks. I set up the camera a month ago." Tyler's hands were shaking as he scrolled through more files. "I heard Mom and Dad fighting about money. She kept saying they needed more, that Dad's salary wasn't enough. Then I heard her on the phone with someone, and she was talking about the old house and making sure there's no way back." He pulled up another video. This one showed Caroline alone, practicing my signature on a stack of papers, over and over, comparing each attempt to what looked like a copy of my driver's license. "I have 17 hours of footage," Tyler said. "It's all backed up to the cloud. She doesn't know about the camera." "Where is it?" "Behind the family photo on the bookshelf. It's motion activated. I built it myself from a Raspberry Pi and—" He stopped. "Sorry. The point is, it's recording everything." He showed me more. Caroline on the phone. Ray, I need this done by Friday. Make it look like old wiring. I'll pay you the other half when it's done. Caroline talking to Michael, her voice soft and concerned. Your mother's getting older, honey. Have you noticed how forgetful she's been? I'm worried she can't manage that big house anymore. What if something happens? Caroline meeting with Pembroke again. Once she's in Sunrise Meadows, we'll have complete control. The nursing home costs will drain her account slowly enough that no one will question it. And if she dies, sooner rather than later... She shrugged. The insurance policy covers that. I stared at the screen, watching my daughter-in-law plan my destruction with the same casual efficiency she used to plan dinner parties. Why didn't you tell your father? I asked. Tyler's face crumpled. I tried. He didn't believe me. He said I was stressed about college applications, that I was imagining things. Mom told him I was acting out because I was jealous of the attention she was giving you. He looked at me with desperate eyes. Grandma, I didn't know what to do. I'm 17. Who's going to believe me over her? I believe you, I said. Tyler pulled out a manila folder from his desk drawer. There's more. I found this in Mom's desk 3 days ago. Inside was a photocopy of a life insurance policy from American Heritage Insurance Company. Insured, Christine Hartford. Beneficiary, Caroline Hartford. Death benefit, $2,000. The signature at the bottom was mine, except it wasn't. I'd signed thousands of documents in my lifetime. Medical charts, prescriptions, legal papers. I knew my own signature. This was close, very close, but the loop on the C was too wide, and the tail on the D didn't have the slight upward flick I'd developed after years of signing quickly. I compared it to the signature on your driver's license, Tyler said. It's not the same, and look at the date. The policy was dated March 8th, 1 week before my house burned down. She planned this, I whispered. She planned all of it. Tyler handed me another sheet, photographs he'd taken with his phone, pages of practice signatures, some crossed out, some circled. Caroline had been methodical, systematic. She'd studied my handwriting like a forger studying a master painting. I found these in the recycling bin, Tyler said. She must have thought they were safe to throw away once she got the signature right. I thought about the pills Caroline had given me, the lock on my door that only worked from the outside, the way she'd positioned herself between me and any means of communication. If I died from natural causes at my age, or perhaps an accident in my confused state, Caroline would collect $2 million in insurance, plus my $2.3 million inheritance once Michael inherited it. And with a forged power of attorney, she already had access to my bank accounts. Tyler, I said slowly, if I'd taken those sleeping pills she gave me tonight, I know, his voice cracked. That's why I had to show you. Grandma, we need to get you out of here. Tonight. No. The word came out stronger than I felt. If we run, she wins. We need more evidence, real, legal, undeniable evidence. How? I looked at my grandson, this brave, brilliant boy who'd risked everything to protect me, and made a decision. We're going to need help. The next morning, I pretended everything was normal. I came down to breakfast in my bathrobe, moving slowly, letting Caroline guide me to a chair like I was fragile. How did you sleep, Mom? Caroline's smile was bright, concerned. Very well, thank you. Those pills really helped. I'm so glad. I'll make sure you take them every night. Michael was already gone, early meeting. Emma had left for school. It was just Caroline, Tyler, and me. Tyler kept his eyes on his cereal, but I could feel his tension from across the table. Mom, Caroline said, pouring me coffee I hadn't asked for. I've scheduled an appointment with Dr. Harrison for this afternoon. Just a checkup. After the trauma of the fire, I want to make sure you're okay. That's very thoughtful, but I feel fine. I know you do, but humor me? I've been so worried. She touched my hand. And I've invited Dr. Harrison to dinner next week. He's a psychiatrist, a friend of Douglas Pembroke's. I thought it might be good for you to talk to someone about what you've been through. A psychiatrist. To document my supposed confusion, my declining mental state. Tyler, Caroline said suddenly, her voice sharp, why aren't you getting ready for school? I have a free period first thing. Then you should be studying, upstairs. Now." Tyler met my eyes for just a second before he left. I saw the message there. Be careful. After he was gone, Caroline sat down across from me. The concerned smile was still in place, but her eyes were calculating. "You know, Mom, Michael and I have been talking. We think it might be good for Tyler to attend boarding school next year. Phillips Exeter has an excellent program. He'd be challenged, surrounded by his peers." She wanted Tyler gone, away from me, away from his cameras and his evidence. "That's a big decision," I said carefully. "We've already started the application process." Caroline stood, collecting dishes. "Sometimes what's best for our children isn't what they want, but we know better, don't we?" That night, after I'd pretended to take the sleeping pills again, I sat on the edge of the guest room bed and thought about my life. I'd been a nurse for 40 years. I'd held the hands of dying patients and told them they weren't alone. I'd advocated for people who couldn't advocate for themselves. I'd stood up to doctors who were wrong, administrators who were cutting corners, family members who wanted to give up too soon. I'd raised a son by myself after Robert died, working double shifts to pay for his college. I'd survived breast cancer at 52. I'd built a life, a home, a legacy. And now Caroline thought she could take it all away because I was old, because I was supposed to be easy to manipulate. She'd burned down my house. She'd forged my signature. She was planning to have me declared incompetent, locked away in a nursing home, maybe even killed. And she thought I was too old, too weak, too confused to fight back. She was wrong. At midnight, Tyler crept into my room again. I was ready. "We need to stop her," I said. "But we need to do this right. Legal, undeniable." "How?" "The fire investigator, Jim Kowalski. He gave you his card, didn't he?" Tyler nodded. "He said if I ever needed anything, call him. Tell him I need to speak with him. Somewhere Caroline won't know." "What about a lawyer?" I thought of Patricia Brennan, a friend from my nursing days who'd gone to law school in her 40s. She specialized in elder law now, fighting for people like me. "I know someone," I said. "Someone Caroline doesn't know about." Tyler looked at me with something like hope. "You really think we can stop her?" I thought about the camera footage, the forged insurance policy, the practice signatures, the phone calls Tyler had recorded. "Tyler, I spent 40 years in critical care. I know how to handle emergencies. I know how to stay calm under pressure. And I know how to document everything." I met his eyes. "We're going to stop her. We're going to protect you and Emma. And we're going to make sure she never does this to anyone else." "What do we do first?" "First, we gather every piece of evidence we have. Then we build a case so strong that no one, not Michael, not the police, not a judge, can ignore it." I squeezed his hand. "She thinks I'm weak. That's going to be her biggest mistake." If this story is making your heart race, please hit that subscribe button. What happens next will show you why you should always trust your instincts, even when everyone else thinks you're crazy. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever felt like someone in your family was gaslighting you? 2 days later, I told Caroline I needed to go to the pharmacy. She insisted on driving me. I insisted I could walk. It was only 3 blocks. I needed the exercise. Fresh air would do me good. She relented, but only after making me promise to call if I felt tired. I walked to the pharmacy, bought nothing, and kept walking to the coffee shop 2 blocks beyond. Jim Kowalski was waiting in a back booth, a file folder on the table in front of him. "Mrs. Hartford." He stood when I approached. "I'm glad you called." "Thank you for meeting me." We sat. Jim looked older up close, probably in his early 50s, with the weathered face of someone who'd spent a lot of time at fire scenes. His eyes were kind, but sharp. "I remember you," he said. "About 10 years ago, there was a fire at the hospital. You were the one who kept everyone calm, got all the patients evacuated safely." I'd forgotten about that. "You were there? First on scene? You were impressive." He tapped the folder. "Which is why, when your daughter-in-law said you were forgetful and confused at the scene of your house fire, I made a note to follow up." "And did you?" "I did." He opened the folder. "Mrs. Hartford, your house fire was arson. No question." The word hung in the air between us. "I found accelerant traces at 3 different ignition points, the basement, the kitchen, and your bedroom. Someone wanted that house to burn fast and hot. They also disabled your smoke detectors by removing the batteries. He showed me photographs, chemical analysis reports, burn patterns that were clearly not natural. The fire marshal's office is treating this as a criminal investigation. But here's the thing. We haven't been able to identify a suspect. There was no forced entry, no obvious motive. Your insurance policy was standard, not inflated. You weren't in financial trouble. Until now, I said quietly. Jim leaned forward. Tell me what you know. So I did. I told him about Caroline, about the forged power of attorney and the life insurance policy, about Tyler's hidden camera and the conversations he'd recorded. When I finished, Jim was quiet for a long moment. Mrs. Hartford, he finally said, I need you to know something. What you're describing, it's not just fraud. If she set that fire, it's attempted murder. And if we can prove it, she's looking at serious prison time. Can you prove it? With what you've told me? Maybe. But I need to see that camera footage, and I need to find the person she hired to set the fire. That afternoon, while Caroline was at her book club, I called my bank. I used the landline in the guest room, speaking quietly, even though I was alone in the house. First National Bank, this is Sandra speaking. Hello, this is Christine Hartford. I need to check on my accounts, please. There was a pause. Mrs. Hartford, I'm showing that we have a power of attorney on file for your accounts. Your daughter-in-law, Carolyn Hartford, has full access. She should be able to help you with any questions. My heart sank. When was this power of attorney filed? Let me check. March 1st, just over 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks before my house burned down. I need to see a copy of that document. Of course. I can mail it to your address on file, or can you fax it somewhere? I gave her the number of a FedEx store near the coffee shop. I'll pick it up there. Certainly, Mrs. Hartford. Is everything all right? I'm not sure yet. An hour later, I was looking at my own signature on a power of attorney document I'd never signed. The forgery was good, very good, but it wasn't perfect. The notary seal looked legitimate, but I'd never met the notary whose name was stamped on it. I called the bank back. Sandra, I need to know something. Did anyone from the bank call me to verify this power of attorney? Another pause. I'm not showing any notes about verification calls, but that should have been done. That's our standard protocol for POA documents, but it wasn't done. I'm very sorry, Mrs. Hartford. Let me transfer you to our fraud department. Not yet. First, I need to know, has Caroline made any transactions on my accounts? Sandra's voice became very careful. Mrs. Hartford, I really should transfer you to, please, I need to know. There was a transfer of $50,000 to an account at Citibank on March 10th, and several smaller transfers since then, totaling another $15,000, $65,000. Gone. Thank you, Sandra. Now you can transfer me to fraud. Patricia Brennan's office was in a small professional building downtown, sandwiched between a dentist and an accountant. I'd called her that morning, and she'd agreed to see me immediately. Christine Hartford. Patricia stood when her assistant showed me in. She was 61 now, her dark hair streaked with gray, but her handshake was as firm as I remembered. It's been too long. I'm sorry it took a crisis to bring me here. That's usually when people call lawyers. She gestured to a chair. Tell me everything. I did. I showed her the forged power of attorney, the life insurance policy, the bank statements showing the unauthorized transfers. I told her about Tyler's camera footage, about Jim Kowalski's arson investigation, about Caroline's plans to have me declared incompetent. Patricia took notes, her expression growing darker with each detail. Christine, this is elder financial abuse. It's a felony in this state, and if she set that fire, that's attempted murder. Can we prove it? With what you've shown me? Yes, but we need to be strategic. Patricia pulled out a legal pad. First, we file an emergency motion to revoke the power of attorney. That stops her from taking any more money. Second, we report the insurance fraud to the company and to the state insurance commissioner. Third, we work with the fire investigator to identify who actually set the fire. And then? And then we go to the police. But Christine, I need you to understand something. When we do this, there's no going back. Your son's wife will be arrested. Your family will be torn apart. Michael will have to choose between believing you or believing her." I thought about Tyler, scared but determined. About Emma, who didn't know her mother was a monster. About Michael, who'd been manipulated just as thoroughly as I had. "She burned down my house," I said quietly. "She forged my signature. She's planning to lock me away, or kill me, to steal my money. My family is already torn apart. We just don't all know it yet." Patricia nodded. "Then let's make sure justice is served." Tyler made a mistake. He'd been so careful for weeks, checking the camera feeds, downloading the files, staying invisible. But he got greedy. He wanted one more piece of evidence, the contract between Caroline and whoever she'd hired to burn down my house. He knew she kept important documents in the locked drawer of her desk. He'd seen her open it once, watched where she hid the key. He waited until both his parents were supposed to be at work, until Emma was at school, until I was at my doctor's appointment, actually meeting with Patricia. He picked the lock, something he'd learned from YouTube, he told me later, and found the drawer full of files, bank statements, legal documents. And there, near the back, a contract with R. Morrison, private contractor, printed at the top. He was photographing it with his phone when he heard the garage door open. Caroline was home early. Tyler shoved the contract back in the drawer, locked it, returned the key to its hiding place, and was halfway to the door when Caroline walked into the study. "Tyler," her voice was cold, "what are you doing in here?" "I was looking for Dad's old laptop charger. Grandma wanted to check her email." Caroline's eyes swept the room, landing on the desk. The drawer was closed. The key was back, but Tyler's hands were shaking. "Your grandmother doesn't need to check email. I'm handling all her correspondence. She just wanted to—" "Tyler." Caroline stepped closer. "I know you think you're helping her, but Grandma is not well. The fire was traumatic. She's confused. And sometimes, confused elderly people make accusations. They see conspiracies where there are none. Grandma's not confused." "Isn't she?" Caroline tilted her head. "Because she told Dr. Harrison yesterday that she thinks someone is trying to hurt her. That's paranoia, Tyler. That's a sign of dementia." Tyler's jaw tightened. "She's not paranoid if someone really is trying to hurt her." The words were out before he could stop them. Caroline's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "Get out of this room, now." That night, Tyler showed me a text from his mother. "We need to talk about your future. Your father and I think boarding school would be good for you. Applications are due soon." She was trying to remove him, to separate us. We were running out of time. Jim Kowalski called me 3 days later. I found him. "Ray Morrison?" "Raymond Morrison, age 43, licensed contractor with a history of insurance fraud. He did 18 months in county jail 5 years ago for staging a warehouse fire for the owner. He's been clean since, at least officially. Can you connect him to Caroline?" "I'm working on it, but I need leverage. I need something that will make him talk." Tyler had photographed the contract, but we needed more. We needed phone records, financial transactions, something that would prove Caroline had hired Ray to burn down my house. Jim had a contact at the phone company. It took 2 days and a warrant, but he got the records. Caroline's cell phone had called a number registered to Raymond Morrison 6 times in the 2 weeks before the fire. The last call was made at 9:47 p.m. on March 14th, less than 6 hours before my house started burning. Jim also subpoenaed Caroline's bank records. There, buried among grocery store purchases and gas station charges, was a cash withdrawal of $7,500 on March 13th and a deposit of $7,500 into Ray Morrison's account on March 14th. "It's not enough for a conviction," Jim said. "A good lawyer could argue coincidence, but it's enough to bring him in for questioning." 2 days later, Jim called again. "Morrison's lawyer contacted us. His client is willing to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence." "He's going to testify?" "He's going to tell us everything. Caroline hired him to make it look like an electrical fire. She gave him the code to your security system. which means she'd been planning this long enough to get that information from Michael. She told him to make sure it burned fast, that you were old and wouldn't be able to get out quickly. My hands were shaking. She wanted me to die in that fire. Yes, Jim said quietly, and when you didn't, she moved to Plan B. But Christine, we've got her now. Morrison's testimony, combined with the forged documents and the camera footage, it's enough to arrest her. When? Soon, but there's something else you need to know. Morrison mentioned another name, Douglas Pembroke, Caroline's lawyer. He's the one who helped her forge the power of attorney and the insurance policy. He's done this before, helped clients exploit elderly family members. We're building a case against him, too. How many others? I asked. At least 5 that we know of. You might have just helped us shut down an entire operation. Caroline made her move on a Tuesday morning. She'd invited Michael to come home from work early. She'd also invited Douglas Pembroke and a Dr. Richard Keating, who she introduced as a geriatric psychiatrist. I wasn't invited. I was told. Mom, Michael said, sitting down next to me in the living room. He looked uncomfortable, guilty. We need to talk about your living situation. Caroline sat across from us, her hands folded in her lap, her expression perfectly arranged into concerned sympathy. Pembroke and Dr. Keating flanked her like bookends. Your daughter-in-law has expressed some concerns about your mental health, Dr. Keating said. He'd never met me before this moment. She's documented several incidents of confusion, memory loss, and paranoid ideation. I'm not confused, I said. Mom, you told Dr. Harrison that someone was trying to hurt you. Michael's voice was gentle, pitying. You said Caroline was stealing from you. That's not rational. It's not paranoid if it's true. Caroline pulled out a notebook, the journal she'd been keeping. Last Tuesday, Christine couldn't remember what day it was. On Thursday, she called me by the wrong name. On Saturday, she left the stove on and nearly started a fire. Every word was a lie, but Michael was nodding, believing her. We think Sunrise Meadows would be a good fit, Caroline continued. It's a lovely facility, very peaceful. You'd have your own room, round-the-clock care, activities with other residents your age. I'm not going to a nursing home. Mom, it's not a nursing home, it's assisted living. I don't need assistance. I need you to listen to me. Pembroke leaned forward. Mrs. Hartford, I've prepared some paperwork, a voluntary placement agreement. If you sign it, we can get you moved into Sunrise Meadows by the end of the week. And if I don't sign? Then we'll have to pursue involuntary commitment. His voice was smooth, practiced. Dr. Keating has already prepared an evaluation based on Caroline's documentation. A judge will review it. Given your age, the trauma of the fire, and the concerning behaviors Caroline has witnessed, I'm not signing anything. Caroline's mask slipped for just a second. I saw rage flash across her face before she smoothed it away. Michael, she said softly, maybe you should talk to your mother alone. After they left, Michael took my hand. Mom, please, we're trying to help you. No, I said. She's trying to get rid of me, and you're letting her. That night, Patricia called an emergency meeting. We gathered at her office after hours. Me, Patricia, Jim Kowalski, Tyler, and Detective Sarah Morrison from the police department's fraud division. We need to move now, Patricia said. Caroline has scheduled a competency hearing for Friday. If a judge signs that order, Christine will be in Sunrise Meadows by the weekend, and Caroline will have complete control of her assets. Can we stop the hearing? I asked. We can do better than that. We can turn it into an arrest. Patricia spread documents across her conference table. Here's what we have. Ray Morrison's testimony about the arson, the forged power of attorney and insurance policy, bank records showing unauthorized transfers, Tyler's camera footage showing Caroline and Pembroke planning the entire scheme. Detective Morrison, no relation to Ray, picked up the insurance policy. This alone is enough for fraud charges. Add in the arson, and we're looking at attempted murder. What about Pembroke? Jim asked. He's going down too. We've identified 3 other clients he's helped defraud elderly family members. The State Bar Association is already preparing disbarment proceedings. So what's the plan? Tyler asked. Patricia looked at me. Christine, That competency hearing on Friday, we're going to let it happen, but we're going to turn it into something else. We're going to invite everyone. Michael, Caroline, Pembroke, your friends, your neighbors. We're going to present all the evidence in front of everyone. In court? No, at the police station. We'll tell Caroline it's a pre-hearing meeting to discuss your placement options. But when she gets there, Detective Morrison will be waiting, and so will a lot of other people who care about you. A public confrontation, I said slowly. A public arrest, Patricia corrected. Caroline thinks she's won. She thinks you're weak, confused, helpless. Let's show her exactly how wrong she is. I looked around the table at these people who believed me, who'd fought for me, who'd helped me build a case against my own daughter-in-law. Let's do it, I said. The night before the confrontation, I couldn't sleep. Not because of fear. I'd moved past fear days ago, but because I kept thinking about how close I'd come to losing everything. If Tyler hadn't been brave enough to set up that camera, if Jim Kowalski hadn't remembered me from that hospital fire years ago, if Patricia hadn't been willing to take my case, if I'd actually taken those sleeping pills Caroline had given me. I sat in the guest room, the room with the lock that only worked from the outside, and thought about my late husband Robert. He'd been gone 8 years, but I still missed him every day. He would have been furious about all of this. He would have protected me. But I didn't need him to protect me. I'd protected myself. There was a soft knock on my door. Tyler. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "Too much on my mind." He sat on the edge of the bed. "Grandma, what if it doesn't work? What if Dad doesn't believe us? What if—" "Tyler," I took his hand. "We have evidence. Real, documented, undeniable evidence. Your father is going to have to face the truth about his wife. And yes, it's going to hurt him. It's going to devastate him. But it's not your fault, and it's not mine. This is all Caroline. I'm scared. So am I. But I'm more angry than scared, and that anger is going to get us through tomorrow." We sat in silence for a moment. "You know what I've learned through all of this?" I said. "I'm not the weak old woman Caroline thought I was. I'm not confused or helpless or easy to manipulate. I'm a survivor, and tomorrow, everyone is going to see that." Tyler squeezed my hand. "You're the strongest person I know, Grandma." "We're strong together," I corrected. "You saved my life. Don't ever forget that. We're about to get to the moment you've been waiting for. But before we do, hit that like button if you're rooting for Christine. And make sure you're subscribed, because the confrontation that's coming will leave you speechless. Drop a comment. What would you do if your daughter-in-law tried to steal everything from you? Friday morning arrived cold and gray. Caroline had insisted on driving me to what she thought was a pre-hearing meeting at the police station. "Just a formality, Mom," she said, her voice bright. "We'll discuss the transition to Sunrise Meadows, sign a few papers, and then we can all move forward." Michael was meeting us there. So was Pembroke. Caroline had also invited Dr. Keating, presumably to provide expert testimony about my supposed dementia. What Caroline didn't know was that the conference room at the police station was already filling up with other people. Patricia was there, Jim Kowalski, Detective Morrison, Tyler had brought his laptop and a projector, and I'd invited some witnesses of my own. My neighbor from Maple Street, my former supervisor from the hospital, the manager from my bank. When we walked into the station, Caroline was still smiling. "This won't take long," she assured Michael. We were led to a large conference room. Caroline's smile faltered when she saw how many people were already there. "What is this?" she asked. Detective Morrison stood. "Mrs. Caroline Hartford, thank you for coming. Please, have a seat." Pembroke's eyes were scanning the room, landing on Patricia. Recognition flickered across his face, followed by alarm. "I don't understand," Michael said. "Mom, what's going on?" I looked at my son, my kind, trusting son, who'd been manipulated by his wife for years, and felt my heart break for him. "Michael," I said quietly, "I need you to sit down and listen. What you're about to hear is going to be hard, but it's the truth." Caroline's hand tightened on her purse. "This is ridiculous. Christine is clearly having some kind of episode—" "Mrs. Hartford," Detective Morrison interrupted, "I'm going to ask you to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney present." Pembroke stood. "I'm her attorney." "Not anymore," Patricia said. "You're about to become a defendant." Jim Kowalski stood and moved to the front of the room. He connected his laptop to the projector, and images of my burned house appeared on the wall. On March 15th, at approximately 3:17 a.m., a fire was reported at 247 Maple Street, the residence of Christine Hartford. Jim's voice was professional, detached. I was the lead investigator on scene. He clicked through photographs showing the burn patterns, the accelerant traces, the disabled smoke detectors. This was not an accident. This fire was deliberately set at 3 separate ignition points using a commercial accelerant. The smoke detectors had been disabled by removing the batteries. Someone wanted this house to burn quickly, and they wanted to ensure Mrs. Hartford wouldn't be alerted in time. Michael's face had gone pale. "Who would—" "Let him finish," Patricia said. Jim pulled up the next slide. Phone records. These are the call logs from Caroline Hartford's cell phone. 6 calls to Raymond Morrison in the 2 weeks preceding the fire. Mr. Morrison is a contractor with a previous conviction for arson. Caroline's voice was sharp. "I hired him to do some work on our house. That's not—" "The work was never done," Jim interrupted. "And these bank records show a cash withdrawal of $7,500 from your account on March 13th, followed by a deposit of the same amount into Mr. Morrison's account on March 14th, the day before the fire." He looked directly at Caroline. "Mr. Morrison has agreed to testify. He's provided a detailed statement about how you hired him to burn down your mother-in-law's house, how you gave him the security code, how you told him to make it look like an electrical fire, how you said, and I quote, 'She's old and won't be able to get out quickly.'" The room was completely silent. Michael turned to his wife. "Caroline, tell me this isn't true." Caroline's mask was cracking. "He's lying. He's a criminal, and he's lying to save himself." "There's more," Jim said. Patricia stood next, holding a stack of documents. "I'm Patricia Brennan, Mrs. Hartford's attorney. I specialize in elder law, and I've seen a lot of financial exploitation cases. But this one is particularly egregious." She projected the forged power of attorney onto the wall. This document was filed with First National Bank on March 1st. It gives Caroline Hartford complete access to Christine's accounts. There's just one problem. Christine never signed it. Patricia pulled out another document, my real signature from my driver's license, from medical records, from old tax returns. She placed them side by side with the power of attorney. "A handwriting expert has confirmed that this signature is forged. Caroline practiced for weeks to get it right." Patricia displayed the photographs Tyler had taken of the practice sheets. These were found in the Hartford household, multiple attempts at forging Christine's signature. The bank manager I'd invited stood up. "I'm Sandra Chen from First National. I can confirm that we never called Mrs. Hartford to verify this power of attorney, which is a violation of our standard protocol. And I can confirm that $65,000 has been transferred from Mrs. Hartford's accounts since this fraudulent document was filed." "That money was for Mom's care," Caroline said, but her voice was shaking now. "For her medical expenses." "Mrs. Hartford has excellent health insurance and no outstanding medical bills," Patricia cut in. "The money went to your personal account." She pulled up the next document, the life insurance policy. "This is even more disturbing. A $2 million life insurance policy on Christine Hartford, with Caroline as the sole beneficiary, signed on March 8th, 1 week before the fire." Patricia projected both signatures side by side. "Also forged. Christine never applied for this policy. She never met with the insurance agent. She never signed these documents." Michael was staring at his wife like he'd never seen her before. "You took out a life insurance policy on my mother? And then you burned down her house?" "I was trying to help," Caroline said. "She needed to be somewhere safe." "Safe?" I spoke for the first time, my voice cutting through the room. "You tried to kill me." Tyler stood up, his hands shaking, but his voice steady. "There's something else you all need to see." He connected his laptop to the projector. "A month ago, I started noticing weird things. Mom talking on the phone in whispers, papers hidden in her desk, the way she looked at Grandma, like she was calculating something." "Tyler, don't," Caroline said. "So I set up a hidden camera in the living room. It's been recording for 4 weeks." The first video began to play. Caroline and Douglas Pembroke, sitting on the couch in the Hartford living room 2 weeks before my house burned down. Caroline's voice came through clearly. The fire needs to look like an accident. Electrical maybe, old house, old wiring. Once she has nowhere to go, she'll have to move in with us. Pembroke's response? And then we proceed with the competency evaluation. Given her age and the trauma, it shouldn't be difficult to demonstrate she needs a guardian. I already have the power of attorney. I forged it 2 weeks ago. Excellent. And the insurance policy? $2 million. I practiced her signature for a month. It's perfect. Michael's face had gone from pale to gray. No, this can't be. Tyler played another clip. Caroline alone, on the phone. Ray, I need this done by Friday. Make it look like old wiring. I'll pay you the other half when it's done. Another clip. Caroline talking to Michael, her voice soft and concerned. Your mother's getting older, honey. Have you noticed how forgetful she's been? I'm worried she can't manage that big house anymore. Another clip. Caroline and Pembroke again. Once she's in Sunrise Meadows, we'll have complete control. The nursing home costs will drain her account slowly enough that no one will question it. And if she dies sooner rather than later, the insurance policy covers that. The room was dead silent. Every eye was on Caroline. She stood abruptly. This is edited. It's fake. Tyler hates me. He's always hated me, and The videos have been authenticated, Patricia said. Metadata, timestamps, everything. They're real, Caroline, and everyone in this room just watched you plan to murder your mother-in-law. Michael stood, stumbled, grabbed the back of his chair. I think I'm going to be sick. Michael, Caroline reached for him. Don't touch me. His voice broke. Don't ever touch me again. Detective Morrison stood. Caroline Hartford, you're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent, Detective Morrison said, pulling out handcuffs. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. This is insane. Caroline's voice had gone shrill. I was trying to help her. She's confused. She's paranoid. You have the right to an attorney, Detective Morrison continued. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. I am her attorney, Pembroke said, but he was already backing toward the door. Not anymore. A second detective moved to block his exit. Douglas Pembroke, you're under arrest as well. Conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, and accessory to attempted murder. Pembroke's face went white. I want my lawyer. You are a lawyer, Patricia said coldly, and you're going to need a very good one. The handcuffs clicked around Caroline's wrists. She was still talking, still trying to explain, to manipulate, to control the narrative. Michael, you have to believe me. Your mother has been declining for months. I was trying to protect her, protect us. You burned down her house. Michael's voice was hollow. You forged her signature. You were planning to have her declared incompetent so you could steal her money. And if that didn't work fast enough, you had a $2 million insurance policy. I love you, Caroline said desperately. I did this for us, for our family. You did this for yourself. He turned away from her. I want a divorce. Carolyn was led out of the room, still protesting, still trying to spin the story. Pembroke followed, silent now, his face carefully blank. The room erupted in whispers. My neighbor from Maple Street came over and hugged me. Christine, I'm so sorry. If I'd known— No one knew, I said. That's how she wanted it. Michael stood alone by the window, his shoulders shaking. Tyler went to him, put a hand on his father's arm. Dad? I almost let her put Grandma in a nursing home, Michael whispered. I believed her. I believed every lie. She's very good at lying, I said gently. That's not your fault. Isn't it? He turned to me, tears streaming down his face. Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have protected you. I crossed the room and pulled my son into my arms. You're protecting me now. That's what matters. We didn't go back to Michael and Caroline's house that day. Patricia had arranged for me to stay with her temporarily. Michael took Tyler and Emma to a hotel. That night, the three of them came to Patricia's house. Emma was crying. She was only 12, and she didn't fully understand what had happened, only that her mother had been arrested and her family was falling apart. "Is Mommy coming home?" she asked. Michael knelt down in front of his daughter. "No, sweetheart. Mommy did some very bad things. She hurt people. She's going to have to go away for a long time. But I want her to come home." I know you do." Michael's voice cracked. "But sometimes people we love do things that are wrong, and there are consequences." Emma buried her face in her father's shoulder and sobbed. Tyler sat next to me on the couch, silent. He'd barely spoken since the arrest. "You okay?" I asked quietly. "I don't know." He looked at his hands. I knew she was bad. I saw the videos. But watching her get arrested, watching Dad fall apart, watching Emma cry, I feel like I broke our family. "Tyler, look at me." I waited until he met my eyes. "You didn't break this family. Carolyn did. You saved me. You saved your father and your sister from years more of her manipulation. You did the right thing, even though it was hard. That's courage." "It doesn't feel like courage. It feels like everything's falling apart." "Things have to fall apart sometimes before they can be rebuilt properly." I squeezed his hand, "And we're going to rebuild, together." Michael joined us, Emma still clinging to him. "Mom, I don't know how to apologize enough." "You don't have to apologize. You were manipulated by someone who's very skilled at manipulation." I should have seen it. The signs were there. The way she talked about money all the time. How she always had an explanation for everything. How she isolated me from my friends, made me think I couldn't trust my own judgment. "That's what abusers do," Patricia said from the doorway. "They make you doubt yourself. They make you dependent on them. And they're very, very good at it." The legal process moved quickly once it started. Caroline and Pembroke were denied bail. "Flight risk," the judge said. Caroline had already demonstrated a willingness to commit arson and fraud. Pembroke had resources and connections in multiple states. They would remain in custody until trial. The arraignment was 2 days after the arrest. Patricia took me to the courthouse, though I didn't have to testify. Not yet. Caroline looked different in her orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked ordinary. That was what shocked me most, how ordinary she looked without her mask. She pleaded not guilty to all charges: arson, conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, financial exploitation of an elderly person, attempted murder. Pembroke also pleaded not guilty. His attorney was already spinning a story about how he'd been deceived by Caroline, how he'd had no idea the documents were forged. But we had the video footage. We had him on camera, discussing the plan, helping Caroline figure out how to forge my signature, advising her on how to have me declared incompetent. The prosecutor was a woman named Jennifer Martinez. She met with me after the arraignment. "Mrs. Hartford, I want you to know, we're going to get convictions. The evidence is overwhelming, but I need you to be prepared for what comes next. The defense is going to try to paint you as confused, vindictive, maybe even complicit in some way." "Let them try," I said. "They'll also try to paint Caroline as a devoted daughter-in-law who was genuinely concerned about your welfare. They'll say the fire was set by Ray Morrison acting alone, that Caroline had nothing to do with it. We have her on tape hiring him." "I know, but juries can be unpredictable. I need you to be ready for anything." Over the next few weeks, more evidence emerged. The insurance company confirmed that the signature on my policy was forged. A handwriting expert testified that Caroline had practiced my signature at least 50 times before getting it right. The bank admitted they'd failed to follow their own verification procedures. And then Ray Morrison gave his full statement. He described in detail how Caroline had contacted him, what she'd asked him to do, how much she'd paid him. He provided text messages, bank records, even a recording of one of their phone conversations. "She told me the old lady was senile," he said in his deposition. "She said it would be a mercy, really, that Mrs. Hartford was suffering and this would be quick." I listened to the recording of that conversation. Caroline's voice, calm and cold. "Make sure it burns hot. She sleeps on the second floor. If the stairs catch fire first, she won't be able to get out. She hadn't just wanted to destroy my house. She'd wanted me to die in it. Michael started therapy 3 days after Caroline's arrest. He needed it. We all did. I keep going over everything in my mind, he told me one afternoon. We were sitting in Patricia's garden, watching Emma play with Patricia's dog. All the time she lied to me, all the time she manipulated me, how did I not see it? Because she was good at it, and because you loved her. I thought I did, but now I wonder if I ever really knew her at all. He was quiet for a moment. My therapist says I was being gaslighted, that Caroline was systematically undermining my perception of reality, making me doubt my own judgment. She did it to me too, I said. The journal she kept, documenting my supposed confusion. The way she'd tell me I'd said or done things I hadn't. It's insidious. How do you trust anyone after something like this? Slowly, carefully. But you do trust again. You have to. Michael looked at Tyler and Emma. I failed them. I brought that woman into their lives. You didn't know what she was. None of us did. Not really. Tyler knew. He figured it out. Tyler suspected. And he was brave enough to investigate. But Michael, he shouldn't have had to. He's 17. He should be worried about college applications and prom dates, not whether his mother is trying to kill his grandmother. Michael's face crumpled. I'm so sorry, Mom. For everything. For not believing you. For almost letting her... He couldn't finish. I know, and I forgive you. But more importantly, you need to forgive yourself. He started spending more time with Tyler and Emma. Family dinners, movie nights, long talks about what had happened and how they were going to move forward. He was learning to be present, to really listen, to trust his own instincts again. It would take time. But we had time now. Tyler threw himself into his college applications. He'd decided to major in computer forensics and criminal justice. I want to help people like you, Grandma, he said. People who are being exploited or abused. I want to use technology to catch the bad guys. You already did, I reminded him. I want to do it professionally. Make a career out of it. He was accepted to 3 universities, all with generous scholarships. He chose the one with the best forensics program. Emma was struggling more. She was only 12, and she missed her mother despite everything. She didn't fully understand why her mother couldn't come home, why they couldn't just be a family again. Mommy made mistakes, she told me one day, but everyone makes mistakes. Why can't we forgive her? Some mistakes are too big to forgive, I said gently. Your mother hurt people on purpose. She planned to hurt them. That's not the same as making a mistake. But I love her. I know you do, sweetheart, and it's okay to love her and still know that what she did was wrong. Those 2 things can both be true. I spent a lot of time with Emma after that. We baked cookies together. We went to the park. We talked about feelings and boundaries and how to recognize when someone is trying to manipulate you. How do you know if someone is lying? She asked once. You trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And you don't let anyone tell you that your feelings aren't valid. Even if they're a grown-up? Especially if they're a grown-up. Adults can be wrong too. Adults can lie too. She thought about that. Is that what Mommy did? She lied? Yes, a lot. I won't be like her, Emma said fiercely. When I grow up, I'm going to tell the truth. Always. I know you will, I said, and hugged her close. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I testified for 2 hours, describing everything that had happened. Caroline's lawyer tried to make me seem confused, forgetful, vindictive. But Patricia had prepared me well, and I had documents, recordings, and witnesses to back up every word I said. Tyler testified about the camera, about what he'd seen and heard. Michael testified about how Caroline had manipulated him, isolated him from his friends and family, controlled their finances. Ray Morrison testified about the arson. The insurance company testified about the forged policy. The bank testified about the fraudulent power of attorney. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, guilty on all counts. The sentencing hearing was 3 weeks later. The courtroom was packed. I'd been asked to give a victim impact statement. I stood at the podium and looked at Caroline. She stared back at me, her face blank. You burned down my house, I said. You destroyed 63 years of memories. You forged my signature on legal documents. You stole my money. You planned to have me declared incompetent and locked away in a nursing home. And if that didn't work fast enough, you had a $2 million insurance policy and a plan to make sure I didn't live long enough to spend my own money. I paused. But you know what you didn't destroy? My strength, my dignity, my ability to fight back. You underestimated me because I'm 68 years old. You thought I'd be easy to manipulate, easy to control, easy to dispose of. You were wrong. I looked at the judge. Your Honor, I'm not asking for vengeance. I'm asking for justice. Not just for me, but for every elderly person who's been exploited by someone they trusted. Every person who's been told they're too old, too confused, too weak to know what's happening to them. The judge nodded. Thank you, Mrs. Hartford. Carolyn was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Pembroke got 10 years and permanent disbarment. Ray Morrison, who'd cooperated fully, got 3 years. As Caroline was led away, she looked back at me one last time. I saw no remorse in her eyes, only rage that she'd been caught. I felt nothing but relief. 6 months after the sentencing, I bought a new place. Not a house. I didn't need all that space anymore. A 2-bedroom condo in a secure building with a doorman and security cameras. Small, but mine. I furnished it carefully. New furniture, new dishes, new everything. I didn't want anything that reminded me of what I'd lost. This was a fresh start. The insurance money from the house fire had finally come through. Not the fraudulent policy Caroline had taken out, but my actual homeowner's insurance. It wasn't enough to replace everything I'd lost, but it was enough to start over. I went back to volunteering at the hospital. My supervisor welcomed me back with a hug. We missed you, Christine. I missed this too. But I also started something new. Patricia and I founded the Hartford Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping elderly people who were being financially exploited by family members. We provided free legal services, connected victims with resources, and educated people about the warning signs of elder abuse. Tyler helped build the website. Emma helped design the brochures. Michael sat on the board of directors. Our first client was a 72-year-old woman named Linda, whose son had stolen her retirement savings. We helped her get it back and get her son prosecuted. Our second client was an 80-year-old man whose daughter-in-law had forged a power of attorney, exactly like Caroline had done to me. Within 6 months, we'd helped more than 50 people. You've turned something terrible into something meaningful, Patricia said one day. I had to. Otherwise, what was it all for? I also started speaking publicly about my experience. Local news stations interviewed me. I spoke at senior centers and community groups. I testified before the state legislature about the need for stronger protections for elderly people. The state passed Christine's law, requiring banks to verify power of attorney documents directly with the account holder and mandating reporting of suspected elder abuse. My nightmare had become my purpose. A year after Caroline's sentencing, I received a letter. It was from a woman named Margaret, 76 years old, living in California. Dear Mrs. Hartford, I saw your interview on the news. Your story saved my life. My daughter-in-law has been doing exactly what yours did. The forged power of attorney, the isolation, the talk about nursing homes. I thought I was going crazy. Everyone told me I was being paranoid, but after I saw your story, I knew I wasn't. I contacted a lawyer. We found the forged documents. We found the bank transfers. My daughter-in-law has been arrested. Thank you for being brave enough to speak up. Thank you for showing me that I wasn't alone. I cried when I read that letter. And then I framed it and hung it in the Hartford Foundation office. More letters came, more calls, more people reaching out because they'd seen my story and recognized their own situation. A man whose son had stolen his pension. A woman whose nephew had convinced her to sign over her house, an elderly couple whose caregiver had been systematically draining their accounts. We helped them all. The foundation grew. We hired staff. We opened a hotline. We partnered with law enforcement agencies to train officers on recognizing elder financial abuse. And we started a speakers bureau. I traveled around the state, telling my story, teaching people the warning signs, encouraging them to trust their instincts. You're doing more good now than you ever did as a nurse, Patricia told me once. I don't know about that, but I'm doing what I can. Tyler graduated high school and headed off to college. Before he left, he gave me a gift, a framed photograph of the two of us, taken the day Caroline was arrested. "You're my hero, Grandma," he said. "You're mine," I replied. Michael was healing too. He'd started dating someone new, slowly, carefully, with his eyes wide open this time. He was learning to trust again. Emma was thriving. She'd joined the debate team at school and was already talking about becoming a lawyer when she grew up. "Someone has to fight for people who can't fight for themselves," she said. She sounded just like me. 18 months after the fire that destroyed my house, I hosted Thanksgiving dinner at my condo. It was the first time I'd had everyone together in my new space. Michael and his girlfriend Sarah, Tyler, home from college for the holiday, Emma, now 13 and full of opinions about everything, Patricia and her husband, Jim Kowalski and his wife, Detective Morrison and her family. My small dining room was packed. We had to bring in extra chairs from the building's common room, but it was perfect. "I want to make a toast," Michael said, standing with his wine glass. "To Mom, for being the strongest, bravest, most stubborn woman I've ever known." "I'll drink to that," Patricia said. "You saved yourself," Tyler added, "but you also saved a lot of other people. The foundation has helped over 200 families now." 217, I corrected. "But who's counting?" We laughed. We ate. We told stories. Sarah fit in perfectly. She was kind, genuine, and she treated Michael with respect. Emma had already declared her approval. After dinner, Emma pulled me aside. "Grandma, I have something to tell you." "What is it, sweetheart?" "I wrote an essay for school about you, about what happened, about how you fought back." She handed me a printed copy. I got an A+. I read it there in the hallway, tears streaming down my face. Emma had written about courage, about standing up for yourself, about how age doesn't equal weakness. "My grandmother is 69 years old," the essay concluded. "Some people think that makes her old, but I think it makes her experienced. She's lived through things most people can't imagine. And she's still here, still fighting, still helping others. That's not old. That's powerful." "Emma, this is beautiful. I want to be like you when I grow up." "You already are," I said, and pulled her into a hug. Tyler came to visit before heading back to school for his sophomore year. We had lunch at my favorite cafe, just the two of us. "How's the forensics program?" I asked. "Intense, but I love it. We're learning about digital evidence, chain of custody, how to testify in court. Everything I wished I'd known better when I was gathering evidence against Mom." "You did an excellent job with what you had." "I got lucky. If she'd found that camera—" He shook his head. "Anyway, I wanted to tell you something. I've been asked to speak at a conference next month about using technology to document abuse. They want me to talk about our case." "Tyler, that's wonderful. I'm nervous. What if I say the wrong thing? What if people think I'm just some kid who—" "You're not just some kid. You're a young man who saved his grandmother's life, who had the courage to stand up to his own mother when he knew she was doing something wrong. That's powerful, Tyler. People need to hear your story." He smiled. "You always know what to say." "That's because I'm old and wise." "You're not old. You're experienced." He grinned. Emma's essay rubbed off on me. Before he left, he gave me a new piece of technology, a small device that looked like a key fob. "It's a panic button," he explained. "If you ever feel unsafe, you press it and it sends an alert to me, Dad, and the police, with your GPS location." "Tyler, I'm fine. Caroline's in prison." "I know, but humor me. After everything that happened, I just want to know you're safe." I clipped it to my keychain. "Okay, but I'm not planning on needing it." "Good," he said, "but it's there if you do." 2 years after the fire, I drove back to Maple Street. I hadn't been back since the night I'd stood on the sidewalk in my nightgown, watching my house burn. I hadn't wanted to see the empty lot, the charred foundation, the absence of everything I'd built. But it was time. The lot had been cleared. Grass had grown over the foundation. A for sale sign stood at the curb. Someone would build here again someday. A new family would make new memories. I stood at the property line, looking at the space where my front door used to be, where Robert and I had carried baby Michael across the threshold, where Tyler and Emma had run up the steps every time they visited. A neighbor I didn't recognize was walking her dog. She stopped when she saw me. "Can I help you?" "I used to live here," I said. "A long time ago." "Oh." Her face softened. "You're Mrs. Hartford. I heard about what happened. I'm so sorry." "Thank you." "For what it's worth, the whole neighborhood was horrified when we found out that your own daughter-in-law—" She shook her head. "I have a mother-in-law. I can't imagine." We stood in silence for a moment. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I mean, really okay?" "I am," I said, and realized it was true. I lost a house, but I didn't lose myself, and that's what matters. After she left, I stood there a little longer. I said goodbye to the house, to the memories, to the life I'd had before Caroline, and then I got in my car and drove to my condo, to my new life, to my new purpose. I didn't look back. Emma came to visit on a Saturday afternoon. She was 14 now, taller, more confident. She'd asked if we could bake cookies together, just the two of us. As we measured flour and sugar, she said, "Grandma, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you ever think about Mom, about what she did?" I put down the measuring cup. "Sometimes. Why?" "Because I do. All the time. And I feel guilty about it." "Guilty about what, sweetheart?" "About missing her. I know what she did was terrible. I know she tried to hurt you. But sometimes I still miss having a mom." I pulled her into a hug. "Oh, Emma, it's okay to miss her. She's your mother. You can miss her and still know that what she did was wrong. Those two things can exist together." "Really?" "Really. Love is complicated. People are complicated. Your mother did terrible things, but that doesn't erase the fact that she was your mother for 12 years. You're allowed to grieve that loss." We went back to mixing the cookie dough. "Grandma, how do you know if someone is trying to manipulate you, like Mom did to Dad?" "You trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If someone is trying to isolate you from your friends and family, that's a red flag. If someone is trying to control your money or your decisions, that's a red flag. If someone makes you feel like you can't trust your own judgment, that's a red flag. What if you're wrong? What if you hurt someone by not trusting them? Then you apologize and move forward. But Emma, it's better to be cautious and wrong than to ignore your instincts and end up in danger." She nodded slowly. "I'm never going to let anyone control me like that." "Good. And if you ever feel like someone is trying to, you come to me, or your dad, or Tyler. You tell someone. Promise?" "I promise." We finished the cookies in comfortable silence. Before she left, I gave her a journal. Write down your thoughts, your feelings, your instincts. Never let anyone tell you they're not valid. 3 years after the fire, I sat down to write my final blog post for the Hartford Foundation website. I'd been writing regularly about my experience, about the lessons I'd learned, about the warning signs of elder abuse, but this post felt different. This was closure. What I've learned. 3 years later, when my house burned down, I thought I'd lost everything. In a way, I had. But I also gained something I didn't know I needed. Clarity. Here's what I've learned. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't let anyone gaslight you into doubting yourself. Age is not weakness. Being 68 or 70 or 80 doesn't make you incompetent or confused or easy to manipulate. It makes you experienced. Document everything. Keep records, save emails, take photos. If something happens, you'll need evidence. Find allies. You don't have to fight alone. There are people who will believe you and help you. The legal system works, but you have to be patient and thorough. Justice takes time. Boundaries are essential. It's not selfish to say no. It's not mean to protect yourself. It's necessary. Healing is possible. It takes time, but you can rebuild. You can move forward. And the most important lesson, never let anyone make you feel small. I thought about everything that had happened. The fire, the betrayal, the investigation, the trial, the foundation, the people we'd helped. If you'd told me 3 years ago that I'd lose my house, expose my daughter-in-law's crimes, testify in court, and start a nonprofit organization, I would have said you were crazy. But here I was. I'd lost a house, but I'd built a foundation. I'd lost a daughter-in-law, but I'd gained a purpose. I'd lost my sense of safety, but I'd found my strength. Caroline had tried to destroy me. Instead, she'd shown me exactly how strong I was. It's been 3 years since the night I woke up to smoke and flames. 3 years since I lost my house. 3 years since Tyler whispered his warning in the dark. I'm 71 now. My hair is completely gray. I have arthritis in my hands. I move a little slower than I used to, but I'm not weak. I'm not confused. I'm not easy to manipulate. This morning my phone rang. A woman named Linda, 74 years old, calling from Arizona. Her son had taken out a reverse mortgage on her house without her knowledge. She'd seen my interview on a news program and wanted help. "I don't know what to do," she said. "He's my son. I don't want to send him to jail." "I understand," I told her, "but you need to protect yourself. Let me connect you with a lawyer in your area. We'll help you figure this out." After the call, I got ready for my day. I had a speaking engagement at a senior center, then a board meeting for the foundation, then dinner with Michael and his family. My life is full. Busier now than it was before the fire. More purposeful. I look at my reflection in the mirror, 71 years old, gray hair, wrinkles earned from 7 decades of living. And I don't see an old woman. I see a survivor, a fighter, an advocate. Caroline is still in prison. She'll be there for another 12 years. Sometimes I wonder if she's learned anything, if she has any regrets. But mostly I don't think about her at all. She tried to burn down my life. Instead, she lit a fire under me. I'm not the woman I was 3 years ago. I'm stronger, wiser, more determined. And I'm not done yet. There are more people to help, more stories to tell, more battles to fight. Because here's what I've learned. Never let anyone make you feel small. Because the moment you stand up for yourself, you realize you were never small to begin with. You were just surrounded by people who needed you to believe you were. Thank you for staying with me through this entire story. If Christine's journey resonated with you, please share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories of courage, justice, and standing up for what's right. And remember, your instincts are valid, your voice matters, and you are stronger than anyone who tries to make you feel weak. Drop a comment and let me know. What's one boundary you're setting in your life today? I'll be reading every single one.